Hello, my name is Andrew Burke. I'm the Chief Executive and Artistic Director of the London Sinfonietta. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the next of our Sinfonietta short live events as part of our Lockdown Live Festival. First of all, it's worth me restating this week. I hope it's been a good one for you. I hope you're safe and hope you're well. And I hope that particularly is true for you, your family and your friends. And as we all go through this really weird time. So we hope what this concert does today is at least bring you a bit of distraction and more than that, inspiration and some joy, and it gives you an insight into the work of the group and also the composers making new music out there, and it'll give you a chance to meet one of our players. The work is also part of our channel, which we've launched, and you can see recordings of our work up there. If you want to subscribe and be kept in touch with all the work we're doing and see those videos, I think it's down that side. There's a button on your screen where you can press and sign up. The Sinfonietta is very grateful to the Arts Council, because without them, we would not have the platform upon which we can generate other kinds of income streams and do the work we do. So we're very grateful to them and the way they've stepped up to support individuals and groups throughout this period, and made some sense of what's a very challenging period. And we're also grateful to Lark Music, an insurance broker who supported this series, and being able to work in partnership with them over the last few years as we put together our Sinfonietta short series has been really a good thing. So we're very grateful to them. But also to the individuals who support our work through commissioning and supporting our projects. Without you, we wouldn't do what we can do. So thanks for that. And if there are more of you out there who would like to support what we do, we'd be very grateful for that support. Particularly now, what we're trying to do is just channel as much of our resources that we have available towards composers and players who are hit so hard at this time. So that's really what Lockdown Live is as much about as anything for us, as well as, of course, reaching out to the audience who are interested in what we're doing. So this afternoon we have two works. One is a world premiere in our World Premiere Wednesday series, which is where we've been featuring the commissions of these Sinfonietta shorts that we offer, and the works made by Laura Bowler for percussion. And then after that, we'll hear a performance of a work by Matthew Shlomowitz, not created for this series, but we're very happy and pleased to have him with us and for his work to be played by our percussionist for the afternoon, Joe Richards. And they're with us now on the feed, and we can bring them in to say hello. First of all, we're going to start with Laura's work, and I think Laura is there to talk to.
Yes.
Aren't you? Yes, there you are. It's nice to see you, Laura, and also to see inside your what I assume is your composing den. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. This is my little den that I compose in.
Yep. And can you tell us a bit about it? Because we're getting some insights into the places that composers make their music. Obviously, there's a piano behind you, but
yeah, of course, yeah. So obviously the piano behind me, but weirdly, I don't really use the piano for composing at all. I use the piano for relaxing and playing Beethoven. But I tend to just write at my desk when I'm sat here. Recently I've been decorating my office with houseplants. That's been the key thing that I've been occupying myself through lockdown. But yeah, it's just a very small room with a lot of books as well on this side that you can't see, an inordinate amount of books from various projects, and quite a broad array of topics from all the political works that I've done. So yeah, it's quite an interesting set of reading there.
It's quite good to see a piano in the background. Quite a few of these Zoom meetings you see on television broadcasts now, it seems people want to choose to be in front of their bookshelves as if that's a kind of a statement about their intellectual prowess. But I'm glad to see a musical backdrop. And just to say hello to Matthew, who's chosen the most neutral of backgrounds for us.
I'm just as close as I can be to the router.
That's important too, of course, in this kind of thing. So Matthew, will come back to you later in the presentation, but it's nice to have you with us. Thank you very much. Laura, your work, which we've commissioned, it's called The Digger. Can you tell us, because it's set to the text of Samantha Schweblin, can you tell us a bit about why you've chosen that text before I hand you over to Joe to talk about the piece and how it's made?
Yes, so here's the book that it's from. It's a collection of short stories by Samantha Schweblin called Mouthful of Birds. And it's an amazing book. Yeah, everyone should read it. But also the particular story, The Digger, it caught my kind of, it lit the flame in me to create something, because it felt very Beckettian. I'm a huge fan of Beckett. In its narrative, and it's a narrative that enables you to interpret it in many different ways. It's quite surreal in some ways, and it's actually quite a simple narrative, and I just thought it was I just really gripped me, and I thought, how can I turn this into something? And then when this project came up, I was like, I think maybe it could be a percussion work somehow.
Can you tell us a bit about the section of text you've chosen to set and use?
So what I've done is I've taken text from throughout the story, so that you basically almost get a skeleton version of the narrative. So obviously it's not the whole text, because that would be a very long piece, but it's just short snippets, so that you get this just an outline of the different stages of the story and what the content is. So, and then hopefully kind of the way that I interpreted the story comes through in the percussion part, and what my perspective is on it, I suppose.
Is it clear from listening to it what the text is about, or did you mean for that to be intelligible? Should we know what the text is saying before we hear it, or not?
It's an interesting one. So in live performance, yes, but obviously it's quite tricky in these circumstances, and it's something that Joe and I have been battling with, in that you don't know what devices people are using to listen from, and obviously with all the sound coming from the same speaker, it makes it harder to discern between the different parts. So in a live performance, I'd say yes. But we've been playing with different ways of interpreting that. Actually, Joe and I haven't been playing with performance directions, like he has to fight against the tape part and different bits. But just to give you a very brief outline, essentially it's a story about a man who takes some time off to go and stay in a cottage by the sea. And he encounters a man who is digging a hole, who addresses him as if he's the person who has instructed him to dig the hole, but he isn't, it's a stranger. And kind of the narrative unfolds around this weird, peculiar relationship that has just happened in this endless hole that's been dug into the ground. And yeah, so that gives you a little bit of insight into the story.
Yeah, wonderful. So handing over to Joe now as our performer. Thank you for taking on today's performance, Joe, with all the challenges of maybe working with percussion, because I know we've experimented with microphones that can deal with the huge bandwidth of sound that percussion instruments create, and I trust it. Well, we know it's working well, so thank you for making that work with us.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
Do you want to just pick up a few questions with Laura about the work before you play?
Yeah, of course. Something that I was really intrigued about initially when we first started working on the piece, and we talked about a lot of the things that you've just said, Laura, but could we find out a bit more about how you first came into contact with the text and where you were and why it perhaps resonated with you in the way that it has done, obviously?
So it was actually a Foyle's recommendation on my emails. Well done, Foyles. But I read the book. I took it with me when I went to Australia for the first time last year. And I was working out there, but then after going to Australia, I went to Vanuatu because it's a place I'd always wanted to go to, and I'm obsessed with volcanoes. And so I took this book with me there, and I remember very vividly that I was reading it on one of the islands there called Malakula, and we were staying with a local family there in a kind of small hut that had no electricity, and it was, super, super basic. And I remember there was nothing really to do there. You could just sit and, be isolated and look at the sea. which was beautiful. And I remember just reading this book whilst I was there, and I don't know whether it was the heat or what it was, but it just felt particularly rich and potent to me at that point in time. And so actually the book is in not very good condition because of the humidity. I think there it's all a bit kind of coming apart and things. So it's seen lots of reading and travelled a long way. So
amazing. And also then, I know you touched on this a little bit, but could you say more about the relationship? I don't know if we've even said that the audience, people are going to hear the text that you selected on a tape part. So it's going to be played into the room that I'm in as I play along to it. But do you find when you were creating the tape part, did you envision the music side, the notated part, as a complement to it? Or is there an element of it battling to take over the storytelling side, so we're not always, being focused on in the same way? It's not necessary to always hear the story in the same way or always hear me in the same way. It's kind of fluctuating between the two things. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Because for me, the story left a lot to the reader in terms of interpretation. And so it made me think a lot about storytelling and how we can maybe come on board with someone else's truth or not, and we can misinterpret, and people can get across wires in storytelling. And so one of the ideas was that by using kind of the disembodied computer voice, so it kind of dehumanizes the storytelling part of the text, and then juxtaposing that against the percussion part, which essentially follows the same rhythmic patterns most of the time as the voice, that we're constantly our ears are constantly questioning which narrative line we should be following, whether we should be following the text line where we can hear the voice, or whether we should be following the percussionist. And it switches, and there's a constant little battle between the two as we try to figure out which truth, I suppose, should be the one that we're listening to.
Yeah, great. I also, maybe I can say just for me, it's not really a question, that I found it very interesting because obviously since you sent me the score and you sent me the tape parts, I've spent a lot of the last few days listening to this computerized voice. And because it does match up so much with some of the sounds I'm making and the way I play, to me it's actually become really familiar, kind of comfortingly familiar to hear it. So whilst everyone I'm sure will hear it for the first time and think, oh, that sounds like a robot, to me, because I'm echoing so many of the inflections in the computer sound, it's kind of like a friend reading the story now. You hear all these nuances and musical things in the voice, even though it's not actually a real person there. So it's kind of humanized the story in a way. For me, anyway. I don't know if that was the intention. I don't know if other people will get that, but certainly for me now, it feels like quite an intimate relationship with the storyteller that I have personally, just because of the time I've spent with it.
I think that's good. Yeah. Great, cool.
Well, should we play? Should we hear it? Well, I don't need to hear it. I'll play it. You can hear it.
Exactly. Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
I needed a rest, so I rented a big house near a coastal town far from the city. The house was 10 miles from the town on a gravel road that led to the sea. I hadn't walked far when I tripped over something.
Is that you, sir?
A man stood up with difficulty.
Sir, is that you?
He climbed down into a hole. I knelt down and put my head in. The hole measured over a yard wide, and I couldn't make out anything inside. From the kitchen windows I could see the beach. There were hardly any waves. The water was ideal for swimming. I crossed the kitchen and looked through the front window. The man was still there. He alternated between looking toward the hole and studying the sky. I realized that one gesture from me would have sufficed to make the man run to the hole and start digging. I saw the man pick up the shovel, go down the stairs from the house toward the field, and disappear into the hole. I stood up and walked toward the sea. When I returned, the digger wasn't there. I looked in and around the hole. I lay face down on the ground, stuck my hand in, and felt the walls. This was a meticulous process. The hole was approximately 3 feet wide and seemed to go down toward the center of the earth. I entertained the possibility of getting in, but right away I ruled it out. When I put one hand on the ground to push myself up, the edge crumbled. For the first time, the digger was looking at me with distrust. Then the digger picked up his shovel and, looking me in the eyes, drove it into the ground again.
Bravo, Joe.
Thank you.
Well done.
Fabulous performance. Very, very theatrical as well.
Yeah.
Which isn't unusual for you, is it, Laura? So
No.
congratulations to you too for making that work for us. Thank you so much. Maybe the first time you've had a world premiere online like this, maybe? I don't know.
Yes, definitely the first time. And it's really interesting what you said about the theatre of it, because I came up with the idea before I knew it was obviously going to be premiered in these circumstances. And like you said, a lot of my work is very theatrical and very much designed for that live performance and interaction with people somehow in the audience. So it's been really interesting, kind of just for me as an artist working in this way and seeing how things work differently and what the effect is and how I can maybe think about that in future work, and if it is in this format and how I can approach it. So it's been really fascinating, and working with Joe on it has been great because he's been so flexible, and we have made a few changes and things here and there to the piece for this specific kind of platform. So it's been really useful the past week working with him.
Fantastic. So Joe, congratulations again. I know you've got to turn the camera off, have you, or reset for Matthew's piece. So we'll say goodbye for a second.
In a minute.
Yeah, just back in a minute. We'll know when you're back when you reappear. But Matthew, we'll come to you in a second just to say we've had a couple of responses already. So Simon Barrow, in the introduction, Laura said it sounds like a cross between Beckett and Pinter. Your work.
I'll take that.
John Osborne's been very grateful for the opportunity to hear some more fine music. Thanks for that, John, and for following the series. So Claire Dolding has asked, there's so much packed into one story. Is Joe imitating the speech patterns as well as adding sound effects and being the digger?
Yes, exactly. So Joe is certainly the digger in the piece, but is also kind of, as he's controlling the other person's narrative, he is also kind of articulating it through the percussion as well, because he is the person that has the most control of the situation in the story. So
And Mark Alexander has said, quite an experience. I've just bought the book.
Amazing.
Which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, Laura, I'm sure there'll be more questions at the end, but thank you so much for the piece.
Yeah.
And now we turn to Matthew. Hi, Matthew. Thank you so much for joining us for this. This work has been played several times, obviously, in the past, and you want to talk about it and its music at the end. So we just hear the piece first, which is good. And could we just hear you introduce yourself as a composer and the various ways in which you work, because you are involved in one or two different groups as a curator and co-founder, and that seems to be an important part of the way you express yourself as a composer, is to be shaping the output of performing ensembles as well.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just to introduce myself. I'm from Adelaide in Australia, but I've been living here for almost 20 years, and I teach composition at the University of Southampton. And as you said, I also am one of the directors of a group called Ensemble Plus Minus.
We've got serious connection problems at the moment. Matthew, I think if you reposition, Joe, you're back with us now.
I'm ready.
And ready. Okay. So I tell you what we'll do is we'll do what we wanted to do anyway, Matthew, which was go into the performance, and then we can hopefully pick up the conversation with you when it's done. So over to you, Joe, for a performance of Hi Hat and Me by Matthew Shlomowitz.
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. 4, 4, 4. 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4. 1, 4, 2, 4, 3. 3, 4, 2, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 1, 4, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 4, 6, 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 6. When I was 7, my favourite film was The BFG. I thought it was so funny. I loved him. And as a consequence, I spent rather a lot of time pretending that I was the BFG. Which is okay when you're 7. However, my parents did take some umbrage to the fact that whenever we went shopping, I might have slipped into my alter ego and I'd run away and hide somewhere and wait for an unsuspecting retail assistant to walk by. And when they did, I'd jump out at them and yell, "Small scumbers!" Closed. Open. Closed. both. Quack, quack, quack. Ready, aim, fire! 8 armed goddesses, 8 ball, 8 letter word, 8:15, 8 Buddhist precepts, 8 mile, 8 to the bar, 8 rules of Fight Club, 8 times 17, 8 times a day, 8 songs for a mad king, 8 items of humour, 8 states, border Missouri, 8 bits in a bite, 8 maids a milking, 8 pinches to a teaspoon, 8 spaces between fingers, 8 or 9 planets, 8 islands of Hawaii, 8 pieces for 4 timpani, 8 cylinders, 8 of hearts, 8 furlongs to a mile, 8-year anniversary gifts, bronze, or pottery.
Bravo, mate. Bravo.
Thanks, Matt.
That was sensational, really.
That was fabulous. Congratulations, Joe. That was a really great performance. Did you break your stick halfway through? Is that?
Yeah, I did. You can't get the chopsticks anymore, you see. Too much practice.
There's also a fantastic Matthew Demo piece, which we're kind of absolutely meant to smile at, because this world of new music can tend to be quite serious. I mean, so I had one thing come in from Elizabeth Davis saying, my 5-year-old daughter loves this piece, by Matthew, as we're just reading the BFG. And so there's a nice thing. I hope my daughter was watching it too. So over to you, Joe and Matthew, to talk about it. Matthew, I hope we can hear you now. I'm sure we can. You've moved positions.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we
Great.
can.
I'm nervous about it now, but good. Well, that was just sensational, Joe. Really, it was such a joy to hear that. So I think, I've the piece has been played a bunch of times by different people, and that was a quite striking interpretation. I totally loved it. So maybe you could tell us something about how you approached it.
Yeah. Well, it's been a joy to learn as well, Matt. So thanks. Really, when I first started dissecting it, it just felt like there was a lot of different characters to the music on sort of each section of the music, each section as it was written. So the beginning felt very, very serious with the numbers. People, I hope, listening maybe paid attention to the fact that each number related to a different sound you make on the hi-hat. So it felt quite regimented and quite strong in that sense. And then after that, it seems to, the writing anyway, seemed to feel like it just opened up into a kind of explosion of experiments and allow different versions of a performer or a musician to come out. So I really, to be honest, found it a lot easier to think about it in that way and learn it than to think about it in any other way, really. So I hope that's allowed. Hope you don't mind.
I love that, and I think I felt like you were really using the kind of format too. The fact you're very close to the camera. We have like a much closer contact with your face than we might in a big concert hall. And I felt like you were giving lots of little cues and adding little elements with that. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's true. It might also help massage my ego a bit to see myself as I play, because that's definitely never happened before. So it's quite fun for me. It's kind of like looking in a mirror. But actually, even when I was learning it as well, maybe it made a difference as well, because I was learning it and I knew that we were going to do it in this context from the beginning, because I hadn't played it before today. I did a lot of practice actually in front of my computer with the screen like this. So some things that I maybe hammed up a bit for the performance are things that I would do kind of naturally when I was learning it. There's this bit where it says on the score to sound like a techno bass drum. I have this sound going that comes towards the end, and when I was practicing anyway, I was kind of doing this bobbing around motion because I felt like I was meant to be listening to some techno music, and that just kind of stayed in. I thought, why not keep it?
Can you tell us anything more about when you were 7?
How long have you got? We might have to have a different Sinfonietta short. It might be a Sinfonietta long for stories about when I was 7. But that one stuck out.
I can tell you just a very quick story, funny story. The score marking is very, it's pretty open, right? You should just simply tell a story, a personal story, a true story from your 7.
Yeah.
And your story was a bit longer than the average one, but really not so long. But sometimes people just tell like a 2-sentence story. But I got a recording from a student abroad a few months ago, and their story was like 7 or 8 minutes long.
That's one way. Sounds like they were using up time in their final recital.
It was a good story.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
We've had a question from Simon come in, which is relevant to interject here. He says, what form does the score take? He says, I'm intrigued. Is there any way you could show a bit of the score?
Yeah, I can. Well, I'll hold up actually what I was reading from now. Hopefully you can see this. It's really very clearly notated. It's as you'd expect, and Matt, you wrote a little key there's a little key at the beginning to describe how the different sounds are notated on the score, but
there's a few open things, right? So you tell your own story and the animal sounds that you choose your.
I think Matt was just saying there's a few tweaks as necessary when the score does leave its traditional notation, but for the most part it is very much written as a performer or as a musician would expect to see notated music.
Somebody, David Foster, has said that was fantastic. Joe, you could have not only a career as a fantastic professional musician, but also on children's TV. Well done. So, it's really engaged with the audience out there.
I'm glad.
Really, it's gone down very well indeed. I also wanted to ask you, and I hope you're hearing this, that I know that you're involved in your own response to lockdown, which is a set of possible commissions for people cohabiting, I think. And at the moment, you've written or are writing one for Laura and her husband. Is that right, Laura?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I asked Matthew when I heard about his piece for cohabitors to write a piece for me and my husband Sam, and it's for synth and baron, the folk drum, which my husband plays, and we're both singing in it as well. And my husband wrote the lyrics for it, so it's we're having great fun learning it, as my husband doesn't normally use sheet music, so I am teaching it to him. And I sent a little demo video to Matthew a couple of days ago of us rehearsing and me having a massive synth failure. So we're having great joys learning it. It's good to actually make music with him because we don't normally do it together. So
Matthew, it's a great idea. How many of these pieces are you writing for cohabitees?
I've written 41 so far, Andrew.
Wow.
I've been writing one a day.
Wow, that's a good discipline. That's amazing. Are you going to try and is that part of the thing, to do one a day throughout the period of lockdown for you?
Yes, more or less. Yeah, I'm worried that I might run out of ideas at some point, but whilst they're still coming, that's my aim.
Fantastic. And will there be a chance for the public out there to see them and hear them? Is that, will some of them make it?
Yeah, my Yeah, so my oldest daughter made a website for them, like kind of homemade style, very nice. And so when people have learned their pieces, they send me a video and we put them up on the website.
And we'll make sure we put that link on our site too, so that people can find it. I mean, they can probably Google it, but you know, it'd be fantastic that they follow that. Sounds like a brilliant idea. Look, I think.
Well, I'm open to more. I'm open to more requests as well.
Okay. Well, given lockdown's going to go on for a bit, I think you could be busy. So let me just feedback a couple more things. Brilliant, Mark says, a brilliant couple of pieces. Love the theatre of them. Well done to all involved. Yeah, there's just generally a good vibe out there for what's just happened, despite the technology problems. Joe, thank you so much for what you've done in your performance. Your living room has become a theatre as well as a stage. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Laura, thank you for your world premiere and for the piece. Matthew, it's been a joy. I mean, despite the technology, thank you very much for joining us and for the work. It's been really great to have you as part of this. We appreciate it very much. Do tune in again, as it were, to our next work. And Friday at 1 o'clock, we'll do some more of the postcard pieces that have been submitted. And that scheme is still open. So if you want to write a postcard and send it in, please do that. And we'll try and get through as many of them in performance as we can. And then there'll be more live performances online next week. I hope you stay safe. I hope you enjoy the time you have together as a family. If you're isolating by yourself, I hope this has helped a bit and brought a bit of the world to you. For now, from us at the Sinfonietta, thanks very much and bye-bye.